So Aliyah Boston is really starting to figure it out. And honestly, so is Caitlin Clark playing with Aliyah Boston. And I've said it from quite early on in the year, and I stand by what I said, that Aliyah Boston really underestimated the offseason and didn't realize how much of an impact it would make to not be going overseas. And I think she maybe underestimated how much, how hard it's going to be to get back into game shape compared to players that have been playing the entire season overseas. And at the end of the day, she's a young player. You can give grace to that happening once, but it's very clear that she is getting herself back into better and better shape as the year's going on. And she had a really, really good game today after having a really good game the last game. Before we get on, if you guys are new to the channel, subscribe. We are like 150 subscribers away from 8,000. That is like a crazy, crazy number. And if we could somehow hit that by the end of the day, that'd be absolutely insane. But Aliyah Boston, I made a video not too long ago titled "What is Going On with Aliyah Boston?" And it was clear a number of things were the case. Clearly, she's still not in as good shape as she was last year, but she was struggling to fit in with Caitlin Clark. She was struggling when the pace was high, and she was also not in the greatest shape in the world. That's not necessarily that much of a knock on her, because it can happen. It happens to NBA players who play 82 games when they're not in the best shape at times during the season. It can happen to any player in any sport, in any league, that especially when your off season is that long, and it's your first long off season, you can definitely underestimate how tough it's going to be and train. And she probably was training, probably was not enough. And that's fine. It can happen 1 year. But in the last couple of games, she's really starting to get back into it. And I don't even think the last game or the last game before that, where she was she had her most points, she had set her career high 2 games ago. If you ask me, was she better against the Dream or was she better today? I'm going to answer today. And the reason why I'm going to say that is that she did not dominate the ball. She did not shoot as much as against the Dream. She was incredibly efficient, still rebounded the ball, and her defense is getting back to the way it should be, because she's still not the best defensive rebounder. She was getting killed by Cardoso. Cardoso's just huge. There is no way that if Cardoso is 6'7", there is no way Aliyah Boston is 6'4". Let's be real. There's no way. But when we're looking at these players, for me, I personally think that Aliyah Boston has really struggled as a roller. Before today, I don't think she connected on a screen. And anytime she did connect on a screen, it wasn't even a short roll. You can go for the short roll, you can pop. She would roll to the free throw line every single time. I don't know why. I don't know why she would roll to the free throw line. And she did something really interesting today, because she set a couple of screens for Clark going left when Clark was coming, and Clark hit 2 threes off that. If in the flow of the offense, she can get a screen and connect on a screen with Clark going left, she's going to get a rhythm shot and make it 75% of the time. And she got that twice today. 6 points out of that. And then I think she might have set the off-ball screen where Clark, or was it an on-ball screen where Clark basically hit the dagger late on in the game. But Aliyah Boston's screening was the best I've seen it. And I talk about this in the Christy Sides video, is that when we talk about basketball players, nobody can change their game, but players can tweak their game. So nobody can it's very rare that someone can completely change their game to fit in on a team without something happening, whether their ego taking a hit, whether it just being uncomfortable. But a lot of time you can find guys, you can find players. If you want a player to play a specific role and it's the opposite to how they're meant to play, you can find players for that. If you wanted somebody to run up and down the floor, Temi Fagbenle does that better than Aliyah Boston. If you want somebody to be a pick and popper, there are better players. Just the way that she was playing, she was almost scared to set screens. If you want someone just setting pin downs and that's all they do the whole game, you're going to find better players than Aliyah Boston for that. Just like for Caitlin Clark. If you want to turn Caitlin Clark into a spot-up shooter, you can find a better spot-up shooter. And you can find a better spot-up shooter that's not in the league than Caitlin Clark. So don't get it twisted. If you're asking Aliyah Boston to play the opposite of her game, she's going to be terrible. If you're asking Caitlin Clark to play the opposite of her game, she's going to be terrible. And that's why I've said they've never, they can't I didn't think they could work together, because for Caitlin Clark to play her best game, Aliyah Boston needs to basically be Tammy Benley, which she's not. And for Aliyah Boston to play her best game, Caitlin Clark basically has to be Julie Van Loo, which she's not. But at the same time, both players today tweaked their game slightly. Caitlin Clark, regardless of the Atlanta game, even in the fourth quarter, I know people are like talking about all the turnovers, she became that pass first point guard running the pick and roll, and it won them the game in the end. And Caitlin Clark today was a pass first point guard. She was looking to pass more than she was looking to score. And turning Caitlin Clark into a pass first point guard who shoots 12 to 15 times a game is not completely ruining her. That is tweaking her game so that she can still show off what she's really good at, which is passing the ball, and at times show off the shooting, but not necessarily the whole team being ran to showcase Caitlin Clark. And it's the same with Aliyah Boston. And the way she rolled today was I really liked it. She sealed a lot. So like she rolled slowly, but she would seal. So Caitlin Clark was coming off the screen, and she would almost always take that extra dribble. She would almost kind of release a little bit and then throw the pass. And because she was doing that, and there was that gap between the two players, when Caitlin Clark was coming off the screen, Aliyah Boston was able to get into position where she was facing the basket, she could catch it and just turn. Because Aliyah Boston, with her back to the basket, unless she has somebody beaten with a drop step and is finishing, she's not going to finish the greatest. She's not the best hook shot shooter. I know she won it. I know she won the game with a hook shot, but she has had her best facing up at the basket, just going for these little teardrops. I know she threw a lob to Alyssa Smith in crunch time, which was one of the dumbest plays I've seen in the history of basketball. Like, she had a wide open teardrop, got kind of scared, and tried to throw a lob to Alyssa Smith like she was prime Blake Griffin. But look, it is what it is. Players are going to make mistakes. But that style of play can really suit the team, and it can suit her and Caitlin Clark. And the fact is, there's going to be some games where Aliyah Boston's going to be that back-end post player. There's going to be some games where Caitlin Clark's probably going to take over a little bit more, and that's fine. But the whole thing is the finding a way that Aliyah Boston and Caitlin Clark can coexist, because these are two really good players. And I've said it in the Clark, or in the Sides video, I had no like hope in Christy Sides being able to do that. And it takes some sacrifice in both the players, and it's very clear that, like, if you've ever seen, like, before the draft when they were on Team USA's together, like, Caitlin Clark and Aliyah Boston are friends. So these are players that are going to want to succeed with each other. Aliyah Boston was excited to play with Caitlin. Caitlin was really excited to play with Aliyah Boston. And it was clear from the get-go that their game styles didn't mix, that they were each going to have to. I thought it was one or the other. And I've made plenty of videos saying it was one or the other. Because the way they played against the Mystics, there was no... Aliyah Boston was almost non-existent. And the way they played against the Dream, Caitlin Clark was non-existent. Neither of those styles of play work for the team long-term. The only way this team can go well long-term is if both of these players are succeeding. Because I think you can have Caitlin Clark at her best, or you can have Aliyah Boston at her best. To do that, you have to trade the other one. But in a situation like today, you can have Caitlin Clark at 85% of her best, and Aliyah Boston playing 85% of her game, both taking slight hits to the way they play, and that team can be extremely successful. But anyway, yeah, that is the video. Thank you guys for watching. Please like, comment, and subscribe.